Look, we've implemented it literally from day one, and particularly here in South Africa, up in the Northern Cape, at our lithium, tantalum, and soon-to-be tungsten operations there. I mean, we're using XRT ore sorters up there for ore separation, and they use AI algorithms and constantly improving and constantly looking at increasing recoveries through their analysis of the ore as it goes through that machinery, that processing plants there. So we've looked at ways which are probably not conventional by your typical mining company approach. We've looked at ways to basically get an edge. So that's one of the key areas. We've been working in the background with an AI-based group up there in East Africa with a view of adopting some of their approaches in opportunity identification. That's something which I think we may look to formalize in the coming months, but it's a way of kind of accelerating the identification of real high-value projects in and around where we're working, where there's synergies and so on. Stuff which previously would take our staff, 3 to 6 months to go through that analysis. All of a sudden now you can use tech to basically accelerate that, and it's done in days, literally. Even down to the analysis, the production of reports. It's basically streamlining that process by using AI-based tools. You've got to embrace technology. A lot of the mining industry is renowned for being it's an old industry. But it's a traditional industry. It's not tech, it's not this, it's not that. But it has the potential to use that, to embrace these modern technologies, to cut costs, clearly, but also to accelerate the timeframes. Bringing a mine into production from exploration all the way through to that typically took 10 to 15 years. Our world today doesn't have the patience for that. It doesn't. We need these raw materials now. Massive shortfalls across all these critical minerals. So unless you're embracing these technologies to accelerate those timeframes, to find ways not to shortcut, but to do the work in a more efficient way, you've got to do that. And that's where we've been looking at it. And I think as a junior company, you're better placed to do that, because you're always, we're not an Anglo. We're not a Sibanye Stillwater. We're a small junior company. So we are able to probably be a little bit more dynamic, move with more agility than some of these bigger companies where they've got several layers of management. We've got a very flat management structure. So when an opportunity arises, it's a very quick decision. If something can be presented to me, very quickly, and you can see that opportunity, then absolutely we take it. And tech is the way that's making us kind of move faster, move quicker, and move more efficiently than perhaps we were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So look, everything we're focused on is in that critical mineral space. Everything you find in your smartphone, everything you find in technology today, that energy transition that we're going through, those are the commodities we are focused on, and those are the commodities where we're looking to bring them into production as quickly as possible, because the demand is there. I've been in the sector for a fair bit now, showing my age, but you need to basically turn these opportunities into cash flow. You need to get the material out of the ground in a form that can be used, not just producing a raw material, but actually doing that value addition. And the only way of doing that, beneficiation, but going further, the refining, the splitting, the cracking of the minerals, for instance, in rare earths, you've got to be able to deliver a product where you get value from. We're looking up in Kenya at the moment, instead of just producing a manganese ore, we're looking at producing the high purity manganese, which is used in electric vehicles, in batteries and so on. So you need to do that. The graphite, which we're looking at producing up there in Tanzania and in Kenya as well. So you need to be able to do that. The lithium, the tungsten, the tantalum. Look, the tungsten up in the Northern Cape here, very exciting opportunity for us there. We've now announced today on the stock exchange, we're committing to a 40-month program to potentially bring something into production. 14 months to bring any mine into production from exploration all the way through is hard to fathom. But here we are, we've got a lot of historical data. For us to go through the traditional route there, through those exploration phases, would take years. As part of the work we're doing, embracing the whole AI tools, the modern tech, to basically do that work and get it in a format where we can assess it a lot quicker is critical for us. And producing at the end of the day a product which basically feeds into that, which is, like I say, it's not a raw material. It is actually a value-added product whether it's an intermediate product or a final product, if you go through to the full refining. That's something which we've got to identify. How can we do that in the most efficient and timely manner? Look, from a policy point of view, wherever we work, it's a commitment to work within the community, to employ locals that will benefit immediately from our activities. Whether we're operating in South Africa, Botswana, Tanzania, Kenya, other East African countries, our workforce is made up of people from those communities and those specific communities, not just from the country, but from the province, from the state, from the county that we're operating in. That's critically important for us. You've got to work there. And whether you're working there with experienced professionals or you've got to basically upskill and provide programs for them to basically benefit from your opportunities and the minds and the projects that you're developing, that is critical for us. Our commitment to those communities is probably stronger than anybody else as a junior company. And part of that comes from the fact we live here. You know, I think when you operate in your own country and you're based there, you tend to do things differently. You know, when you're just a fly-in, fly-out person, you know, as a CEO, if you visit something for a week, everything is staged. From the moment you meet the minister, to meet the community, to meet the workers, it's staged because they know you've been coming from the previous 3 weeks. They've all got their PPE, everything is just polished for you. When you're there each and every day, you see the reality of the situation. And when you see the reality of the situation, you know exactly what you're going to do. Okay, you know how to operate properly. So our clear policy is when we're operating in a country, we're working as if we live in that country and we're only employing people from that country. It's the way to do that. That kind of flows through to your question on youth. You know, we've made it very clear across everything we're doing that we provide opportunities to youth, to young graduates, to basically people already studying. Okay, so in Kenya, for instance, perfect example, we've got MOUs with both the Mining Society, Mining Engineers Society, and the Geological Society, basically providing opportunities for their undergraduates and graduates to come and work for us. We've got an MOU with JKUAT University and the Mining and Mineral Processing Department in Kenya, where they're actually doing study work for us on producing high purity manganese, you know, that value addition. We've already got 3 of their undergraduates on site working with us at our manganese operations. So we've got to create opportunities. Okay, that's how you know, there's a massive unemployment throughout Africa. We know that. I think in Kenya, you know, there's 20 to 30% of full-time employment. Everybody else is working in the informal sector, if you want to call it that, or working for themselves. Okay, we want to provide opportunities there. In the mining sector, okay, there is that opportunity to give people the platform to grow. So we will do that across all aspects of our business. So for the youth in all the countries that we work with, absolutely there's opportunities with us and we embrace that. We're not going to bring a graduate out of the UK or Australia. When you've got, there's more mining schools in Kenya than there is in the UK. There's more mining schools in Kenya than there is in Australia. It's crazy. You're getting such skilled workers, skilled graduates here in Africa. And it's not just Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. So if you're not embracing that and giving people an opportunity, then I think as a company, as a CEO, you're failing.